Innovate? No, we already tried it once. It didn't work. In this presentation, I consider innovation as the process of applying changes to the established, for example, by using different data, different methods, tools, or ideas. And with the keynote and the following videos, we would like to inspire you to look beyond disciplinary boundaries, but also to look beyond your methodological practices and making you believe that innovation can work. As Brian already indicated, I would like to present first the findings of the survey that we have carried out. Secondly, I will show a few examples, and I'm very sorry if I can't do justice to everybody. I was very picky in selecting the examples, and I will conclude the presentation with introducing what the Methods Expertise Center actually can do for you. About 1.5 months ago, we have distributed a survey link. And in this survey, we wanted to get insights into the kind of data you use, the kind of methods you use, the kind of research approaches you apply, but in particular also to get an idea of the collective expertise that is actually present within AISSR. We also wanted to investigate what is actually missing, how we as AISSR Methods Expertise Center can actually help you to maybe improve some of your expertise that you would like to. The survey was active between October the 7th and November 17th, and 267 respondents have actually filled out the survey, and we thank all of you who have done so. Thank you very much. I'm not able to present everything. We have selected a few examples where we thought maybe that's interesting to show, and we will also distribute the findings in a short report in one of the next AISSR newsletter. At this point, I also want to make a disclaimer, because given the diversity of disciplines, but also the different scholarships that we practice, maybe some of the terms or some of the vocabulary that we use were not the vocabulary that you are used to use. So forgive us if we have used terms that you think that were not the correct terms, but we tried to identify the terms that were most common across all different researches. Let me start with saying a little bit about the kind of topics that we actually research. As AISSR, as social science researchers, we are actually particular in starting our research with the research question. We are curious about something, and then we think about how we can study this kind of phenomenon. We have asked all of you to characterize your research by 3 keywords, and most of you have answered these questions by focusing actually at different themes, and to a lesser extent to the geographic regions. And it won't surprise you that we actually find topics like inequality, urban, and migration at the top, and also like education, health, and conflict. So what I have listed here on the slide, these are the topics that were mentioned a lot. There is a huge range of lists and a variety of terms that have also been responded, but I mainly looked at the main topics that appeared. I've also clustered a little bit. For example, urban was not only mentioned as urban, but urban was mentioned as urban studies, urban governance, urban development, and the same also holds for political economy, politics, and etc. In terms of geographic regions, what I noticed, if people have mentioned it, is that what was very prominent was Africa, it was the European Union, it was also Asia, it was to a much lesser extent the Latin America or the United States as such. Compared to other disciplines, within the Faculty of Social Science and Behavioral Sciences, AISSR is actually quite particular. There's a diversity in research approaches, which ranges from qualitative case study to cross-sectional quantitative research, different geographical scales and institutional scales, but also multiple kinds of data and methods and software to produce a huge wealth of new knowledge. With the survey, we asked you to provide the research design that you actually have applied in the most 3 recent publications. And what you can see on the slide, these were the answers that we got back, and what you see that a majority uses qualitative case studies, many use qualitative comparative case studies, a few use quantitative cross-sectional research, and a very few also experimental research. I have also included a category other, and these are mostly questions where people couldn't fit themselves into the ticking box, which is, for example, mixed methods approaches. I've also tried to make a disaggregation by program groups. I've used abbreviations. I know if you belong to, I think if you belong to a group, you can recognize yourself. I do it once to introduce the terms, starting from the top. It ranges from the Department of Sociology with political sociology, institutions, inequality and life courses, cultural sociology, followed by transnational configurations, conflict and governance, political economy and transnational governance, challenges of democratic representations, urban planning, urban geography, governance of inclusive development, geographies of globalization, moving matters, healthcare and body, globalizing cultures and quest of belonging. There were also two other categories where people belonged to more than two program groups, and one who did not belong to a program group but to one of the research centers that we have within AISSR. What you can see in this slide, which refers to the different research approaches that we use within AISSR, that there's quite a diversity across the different groups. You can see that qualitative dominates, but there are certain groups where more the cross-sectional quantitative research actually dominates, for example, in institutions, inequalities, challenges of democratic representations, but also in urban geographies. Let me move forward with the kinds of data that we actually collect. You won't be surprised that there's a wide diversity of the different qualitative data that we use, ranging which very prominent, and this is in descending order. Many use interviews, literature reviews, ethnographic and participant observations, and text analysis or texts in different forms. There's much less use of quantitative databases like existing off-the-shelf databases, own designed survey data, or existing databases but which were not surveys, as you can see on the right. A few people also responded to collect data through geographic information system, GPS systems, or remote sensing, but also through experiments like experiments in the lab, through a survey, or in situ. If you look at this across the different groups, you see a similar pattern as in the research approaches, that there's a huge majority which uses different kinds of qualitative data and different kinds of quantitative data. And you see again the same pattern that we saw actually in the different research approaches. What is worth noting here, which you don't see on the slide, is that if people make use of existing databases, there is a difference in scales. For example, the group Transnational Political Economy and Transnational Governance, they work at all scales, from global to the local scales, while, for example, groups like Urban Geographies and Urban Planning, they rather work on the local scales. And in between is more the institutions, inequalities, and life courses, who rather work at national and global scales. A third aspect that we looked at is the kinds of methods that are used within the entire AISSR. And it follows a similar trend as you actually saw in the data collected. Of course, no surprise, with a huge majority of qualitative data, to some extent quantitative data, and I've listed here also the spatial data, which is an emerging data source in the different program groups. The top qualitative methods that I actually used are qualitative single case study, ethnographies, narratives, but also different kinds of qualitative data analysis based on texts, including content analysis or discourse analysis. With respect to the quantitative data, the most commonly used methods were descriptive statistics, regression modeling, multi-level analysis, but also data reduction. And in terms of the spatial methods, mapping and visualization were the most common, and some people also answered that they also do more advanced analysis using geographic information systems. A few people use modeling. You can just find them incidentally in the group of governance of inclusive development, but also in the group of urban sociology. Just to keep you the disaggregation across the different program groups, you can see again a similar pattern, but now because I also have included the spatial dimension, you can see that the use of spatial data and the spatial methods is very much present in the Human Geography, Planning and International Government department. Let me finalize my keynote with introducing the Methods Expertise Center. Basically, it consists of 3 people. Jeroen Bruggeman, who is the expert on numbers, Gerber Moerman, who knows everything about words, and myself, I know a lot about maps. I would like to say a little bit of what we can do for you or how we can help you. Basically, we are there to provide advice of, for example, if you have questions on research questions, but also of research methodologies, but also advice if you want to write a research grant and you would like to get a better understanding of how to put a certain method, how to frame it, how you could put it differently, etc. The Methods Expertise Center, as I said earlier, also organizes clinics where we actually offer a number of topics according to the interest. So if you have a certain research method that you would like to learn, and there are many of you who would like to learn the same research methods, we try to find an expert to actually do this clinic. What you see here on the slide, this is just an evidence of such a collaboration. It refers to the research of Amanda Brandelero, who studied popular music in the Netherlands. I also contributed to this research. And what we looked at was to what extent are there social networks among band members and different bands and people who actually write the text for the bands, but we didn't have any idea of how to visualize such a network. By asking Jeroen, who is the expert on numbers, but also social network analysis, we actually could create a figure that better visualized the social network about the different within the different band members. You can find a lot of information going to this link, so maybe you want to write it down. It's a very easy link to write down. In this link, we also provide a lot of information of an overview, actually, of different methods, giving some links where you can find extra information on methods, and also email addresses of us that you can also find us. With no further ado, I would like to close my keynote, and I invite you to watch the videos, because now you can really see the innovative methods.